he doesn't have the same pressure as all the other players might have in the tournament.
Yeah. And pressure is on for Pragg in this one. Black pieces, he's down by 1 point. Here we go.
Here we go, and it's the English opening. So Ding not opening with his favoured queen's pawn. We see the 4 knights variation now of the English, and okay, a set of trades in the middle of the board. Black's knight going back, White's now going to castle his king. This is known as the reverse dragon variation, because White's formation, if you look at the white king, the white bishop in front of it, that's a formation you normally see in the dragon Sicilian. Here, it's basically the same opening, just colours reversed. And, okay, Ding chooses to develop both of his bishops on the longest possible diagonals, fianchettoing his bishops. Good opening choice, you think, here, Jovanka?
Yeah, I think it's a great opening choice. And he's been quite successful in this tournament using the English variation. And, of course, it's like a reverse Sicilian with a tempo up. And the big plan is just simply to get those rooks on the open line and start utilising the c5 square.
Yeah, so we'll see this happen at some point in the near future, but Pragg first needs to decide how to develop his pieces. Same as the last game in a way. Both sides just need to bring their pieces to good squares, connect the rooks, start taking control. And, okay, Ding slightly shook his head. I'm slightly surprised there because it's just a normal position. Why shake your head in the opening? Maybe just surprised by this opening variation. And, yeah, I've seen him win actually several games in this type of structure. I'm not sure this exact position, but at least this type of structure, Ding Liren. Meanwhile, Pragg maybe slightly less experienced here than his opponent.
Yeah.
The Sicilian is really like one of the most, is one of the most normal openings to play with Black, but why do we see the English so seldom as White?
Yeah.
Which is like the same, but just opposite colour.
You're right there. I've always asked myself that question. So just to show this point as well, the Sicilian is after 1 e4. Black meets it by pushing his c-pawn 2 squares forward, and we've seen in the tour, actually, it scored very well for Black, some of these Sicilians. But yeah, why not play the same opening just with 1 extra move? So White does the same, pushing the c-pawn forward, and as we saw Pragg do, basically after this central pawn, White has the Sicilian with colours reversed, just 1 extra move. So you're right, Heidi. I mean, we've seen on the tour though this season, the English has become extremely popular. Maybe it's just a trend in the last year or two, but in the past, very rare you see the English opening at the top level. Normally, it's always 1 e4 or 1 d4. And if we fast forward to the current position, I think it's because in the Sicilian, the reason it's popular now, in the Sicilian, often the opponent's king, here the Black king, would actually castle on the other side of the board, and we'd see kind of both sides, both kings on opposite flanks, lots of attacks, throwing pawns forward. Here, because Black has 1 less move, Black's king has to go on the short side, so we have same side castling, as we call it, so it's more positional, strategic play. I guess, yeah, maybe just players in the past, they were impatient, they wanted to go direct, pushing one of these pawns forward in the beginning of the game. Now, players, because the level of everyone is so good, sometimes you have to be patient, you have to be happy to maneuver and take things slow, and I love openings where you kind of keep your 2 pawns, central pawns, nice and flexible, personally.
And interesting point, and whilst the players are thinking about what decisions they're going to take, well, I just wanted to say we have 2 competitions going on. We have the selfie challenge and we have our quiz of the day. And I'll start off with our selfie challenge because you guys have been awesome in sending us loads and loads of pictures. And Moki says, "Move, I am watching the game." That's good. And
nice.
yes, very, very nice. And okay, the light squared bishop develops itself. Yeah. Can I show quickly one selfie from Elmer Johnson? And it says, "Here's a nice selfie. Thanks for the Najdorf Sicilian. Just curious, is the Fort Knox variation a good defence?" I've heard it's very solid, but who's there in the selfie? David.
It took me a while to recognise myself there. Is that outside the good night? Is that...
Or is this on the subway? I remember you met someone on the subway and took...
Yeah, I've been...
remind me of that picture.
Not to be big-headed, but I have been recognised a few times, so I'm not sure which time that was. I'm wearing a bag.
Yeah.
Elma, you have to let me know where that was. When that was.
Tweet us, where did you meet David?
Yeah.
And
yeah. Go ahead.
No, I mean, I love getting those kind of selfies, especially if you manage to stump David. And in the meantime, let's go back to the game. Because we've had a few moves. You found we remembered.
I mean, I couldn't see the picture very large there, just a small image. And it was the day before May 17th. So it was on May 16th, I was stocking up on supplies for the party.
Aha! Very cool.
City.
We do have a move, and after you told us about that, we're going to head down to Simon at the good night to see what's going on.
Yeah, so just a very kind of solid, stable move there. White stepping a pawn forward. I think Ding was slightly afraid that Pragg would have pushed the black pawn in the middle of the board down into the white camp, hitting one of the white knights. So he's just marking out his territory there. Just a very solid, stable move.
All right. Well, Ding is playing super fast with the white pieces in this game. Let's go down to Simon at the good night. I bet some good openings are being played there tonight as well, Simon.
I'm not sure about good openings. Maybe some drunken openings are getting played here. I'm having a really tough day's work here. Ha 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 ha. But anyway, you can see there's lots of people playing. It's getting really busy here. It's great to see such a lovely environment where you can just come, have a beer, play some chess. And we're just going to go and have a very quick word now with the owner, one of the owners of the Good Night. So let's go and say hello to Christopher. Hello, Christopher. How are you doing today? You doing well?
Yeah, I'm fine, thank you.
Great. And who would you like to win this match? We saw that Ding won the first game. Are you rooting for Ding or for the young Pragg?
It's really hard. I mean, I kind of have sympathy for Pragg, especially since it's like in rapid rating in FIDE, he's approximately the same rating as I am, which is concerning.
I mean, so you're a super grandmaster?
Yeah. No, but he hasn't played FIDE-rated rapid games in 2 or 3 years.
He has a very low rating, doesn't he? And you also told me something quite interesting. We were talking about openings today in the studio, and you told me that one of your favourite openings is the same as someone on the panel. And tell us what your favourite opening is.
The bird is the word. And I was very happy when Magnus played it earlier this tournament. He hasn't done it in 5 years. So that was great. And I know Heidi is quite a fan of the opening as well.
Brilliant. I actually like the bird as well, but I have to say it's a rubbish opening. So sorry about that, Christopher, and sorry about that, Heidi. Maybe we should go back to the studio and see if Heidi agrees with my assessment of the bird.
Aha! Very interesting. And well, Heidi, is it about the birds opening or is it about birds? Because you have a TV show about birds.
Yeah, I love birds as well, but I actually used to play the birds opening before. Some years ago, but then I started training with the Norwegian grandmaster, and he said that I couldn't play it. I had to play something different because you have to learn proper chess openings to be a good chess player.
And then when you come at Magnus level, then you can start playing the bird, maybe.
Yeah, but I actually play against Christopher. We're in the same club, and we have agreed that if we meet each other, we're going to play the bird.
Aha! Very cool. The bird opening, we've seen it once in the Meltwater Champions Chess Tour. Magnus played it. And we don't have a bird in this one. We do have good chess moves.
Yeah, good chess moves and white just pushing pawns. I want to say as well, with the bird, you do avoid the French defence, Heidi.
Yeah, that's true.
But meanwhile, in this English opening, we do see white marking out the territory. The reason I find these positions so difficult to play with white is because you always have to play these kind of small pawn pushes. Ding, with his last move, pushing this pawn forward 1 square. It's as if you've only pushed your pawns forward 1 square. You're just kind of playing on the first 3 ranks, first 3 rows. But if we think strategically in this type of opening, this actually long-term is quite good for white, because if you look in the centre of the board, white has 2 pawns and the kind of E and D lines, black only has 1. And as Jovanka mentioned earlier, this kind of semi-open C-file means that you can later manoeuvre your knight around. For example, OK, Pragg there, just getting the rooks nice and centralised. Black's pieces look great, by the way. But if white takes a step back and, say, black doesn't do too much and then takes a step forward with his knight, this is the key square. And actually, Ding chooses to advance in the current position. He pushes this pawn forward. It's all about trying to get the white knight to this square later, maybe either this route or this route. And if you can get it there, often you will make black's pieces feel very uncomfortable. It's as if you're just kind of on the 3rd rank, then inching forward to the 4th rank, inching forward again to the 5th rank. And there is a small threat in the position of pushing this pawn even further forward. kicking away this black knight. For example, again, if black is too slow, then once the black knight moves now, maybe you can grab a pawn in the center of the board, hitting the black queen. So I'm expecting, in the current position, black to either prevent this pawn push by pushing a pawn of his own, just kind of covering the square, or black can just ignore this pawn push and, for example, retreat a bishop just to defend his central pawn. Another typical idea in this line, I think we might well see it happen over the next couple of moves, is the black knight jumping into the center. In a way, white is so solid. Okay, the black bishop did go back. White is so solid that black has to create some action. Black has to do something before white's pieces come out, before the white queen comes out, the white rook gets better. Black's pieces are pretty much perfectly placed, so jumping into the center with the knight makes a lot of sense. And if we see a trade, black is very happy in these types of positions because suddenly black's rook gains an open line. I mean, it's very balanced at the moment. Both sides have chances, but far, far from a boring position. It's full of potential.
Yeah, I totally agree with that assessment there. It's brewing up to be a real dogfight. And, well, whilst the players are thinking, then, well, we also have a quiz of the day where we're asking what is your opening nightmare? And how many of these are familiar to you both? And Hongwe Ralto says fighting against the Geller system in the Pragg, which is an aggressive system, is worse than watching the movie Cats. Ooh.
Hates the movie Cats, apparently.
Yeah, he doesn't like the cats. I thought it was, I don't think I've actually ever seen it, but the songs from the musical, very good. I like them. John Hickman says that their opening nightmare is when they're preparing and they see that their opponent plays the same openings and they know all their tricks. Has that one ever happened? That actually happened to me when I was preparing against David. And I was like, oh my goodness, I have actually sent him analysis as well. I was like, he won't use it. I am pretty sure he won't use it, but will he play that opening? And then we'll be like, oh.
Yeah, I mean, when I was young, I think that's the thing that inspired me to broaden my repertoire to learn new openings, because I used to play the same thing every single time, and occasionally I would meet someone who knows exactly the same openings, exactly the same tricks that I do. So I decided, you know, if you can't beat them, you know, you might as well expand your opening repertoire, and I think that's why I kind of decided, yeah, it's I need to know more.
That was quite good about playing the bird, because whenever people were preparing against me, they would be like, okay, she either plays f4, which is bird, or e4, and they would be like, I know a lot of things against e4, so I'd just prepare against f4. But I didn't normally play f4 anymore. I normally play d4.
Oh, you switched?
Yeah.
Oh, sneaky.
Send them in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
Very
That is a cool thing about chess tournaments, chess games. It starts long before the first move, right? With all the opening prep. It's such a long, lasting sport.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, having the first move is like having the serve. Yeah. And I do remember when I was preparing for Fabiano Caruana in a big tournament, I was round one, so the weaker players play the top players. And I looked at his repertoire and I was like, he plays everything. What can I do to prepare against this? And so I just had a look at his previous games, and he'd been playing the king's pawn opening. He'd just been pushing his king pawn. And I was like, okay, he's going to do that. So I prepared all morning on my trusted Caro-Kann. And I turn up, guess what he plays? He plays exactly the first move that we saw Ding play against the Praggnanandhaa, the queen's pawn. And I felt like going to him, well, there you go. I might as well put all my preparation to one side and freestyle it. But obviously you can't say that to your opponent.
Yeah, and for example, recently I played a match against Niels Grandelius, and we know each other very, very well. I spent months and months playing online games and openings I would never play against him in the match, just so that he would prepare the wrong openings. And I think I must have entered dozens of tournaments which I knew would end up on the database, where I only played really aggressive lines. And then against him, I played the quietest, most boring lines ever. So, yeah, it's just misdirection.
And was he put in the wrong direction? Did you talk to him about it afterwards? Could you see by his play?
In my white games, yes, but he correctly predicted my bluff when I had black, unfortunately.
Oh, no.
So it was pretty obvious, I think, that I was bluffing with my black openings. I would never dare to play aggressively as black. So. But with white, when I had white, at least, he was surprised every time. I think.
Wow. But that is very interesting when we see this match, right? Ding, playing candidates in 2-3 weeks. Is he bluffing with his openings here?
It's very interesting. I think the English opening, it's on lots of people's radar nowadays, and the English is so flexible that he's going to potentially save it up for the candidates. But something that Magnus Carlsen said as well, if Ding doesn't play any of his normal openings, if he only plays other stuff, people will know he's bluffing. People will know he's just trying to send them in the wrong direction. Sometimes you have to mix it up. Sometimes you play what you want to do. Sometimes you throw in a few rare things, and then you kind of keep them, you make them unsure. You don't want to just focus in one direction, because then it's obvious that you're not going to do that. You're going, so I think he's playing some of his normal openings, some surprises. He's trying to mix things.
But I was going to say something about Ding. He hasn't had that much time to prepare for the candidates, because
true.
first he had to play this marathon month, and then it was unclear whether he would actually get to the thing. And it's finally clear now. He's got his visa.
I actually don't know. He is booking his tickets and getting his visa. That is what Ding is saying. He is invited by FIDE. He is qualified. He's ready. And I don't think COVID restrictions is in the way for him this time. So it should work out.
Okay.
Yeah.
But Karyakin has appealed, hasn't it? Isn't that if his appeal is approved, then Karyakin can play still?
But I think it was...
His appeal to FIDE was rejected, but I think he can appeal to the courts.
Yeah.
In Switzerland.
Yeah, in Switzerland, the courts of sports of arbitration.
Some French, is it?
Yeah. Either way, I mean, it's unlikely that that decision would go through in time. I mean, the candidate starts in 3 weeks now.
Yeah.
So, it does look like it will be Ding.
The drama of the candidates, and he is a well-deserved participant in the candidates. He didn't get to play any of the qualification tournaments, did he?
No.
Grand Prix, World Cup?
Grand Prix, Grand Swiss, World Cup, nothing. I think since the previous candidates, until this last month, he pretty much played nothing, only a handful of games. So, I guess in one sense you could argue that he had the whole pandemic to prepare his openings, to study chess, to study his openings. But, until last month at least, he was very rusty. I think he's more than made up for that now.
Definitely. And we can kind of say the candidates already started. We are taking a look at openings. Ding is one of the players, and a bunch of moves.
Bunch of moves and a really interesting decision, quite a rare decision from Ding Liren. If we just jump in and rewind, actually, just a couple of moments. Here, Pragg decided to push his pawn forward, really trying to make Ding kind of force him into a decision that he doesn't want to take yet. This pawn is under threat now from the black pawn, and usually as soon as kind of a wing pawn challenges you, you don't want to capture it away from the centre, you don't want to ruin your pawn chain, and normally you bypass this by pushing your own pawn forward. Also, you kick away this black knight from its nice post, but as mentioned, this would allow the black knight to jump in, gaining a bit of time in the process, and now, if you don't take this black knight off the board, then this white pawn is actually a bit weak. Therefore, Ding decided, OK, I'm going to ruin my own pawn structure, I'm actually going to capture here, and white now has an isolated pawn. In an endgame, this is going to be weak, but on the bright side, black's knight is temporarily on the edge of the board. So it's kind of pros and cons. You've lost the integrity of your pawn structure, but you've worsened your opponent's pieces. And now Ding retreating with the white knight. This has been met by Pragg. Nice, safe move. I love this type of move in rapid chess, especially because now you know you'll never get checkmated on the back rank. Your king has some breathing space. Maybe the light square bishop can hide back here as well, if necessary. What do you think here, Jovanka, Heidi, about the placement of the knights? I mean, it looks a bit weird, these two black knights, but you can't kick them away. They control some squares.
You can't control this. I agree with that. And one thing that is slightly worrying, I feel, for Ding is that, that pawn on A3, it's kind of weak. It's by itself. It's got no friends. And my experience when I was playing this against the Sicilian is that I always lost on that side of the board on the left. I always made a mistake there, and something happened, and whatever I generated in the middle just wasn't enough.
Yeah, it's hard for white here. It's hard for Ding to generate anything in the middle because black is just really well centralized. If white ever pushes a pawn in the center of the board, it's only going to backfire. So Ding is a bit stuck. I mean, I would be looking at moves such as the one you mentioned earlier, Jovanka, just jumping in with the knight, maybe to this square. For example, if black just waits, say he drops his bishop back, this knight jump would at least persuade black to part with a bishop for the knight, and suddenly white's pieces really come to life, hitting the knight now. This bishop is opened up. This would look good, but I guess black does have one move, and I mean, maybe black can stop this. I'm not really sure how. Maybe the black queen would get active, hitting this bishop. Maybe this is the one downside to the white knight moving away. Okay, when in doubt, that's the motto nowadays. Push, harry the h-pawn. It literally does nothing, but it's a nice move. And again, maybe giving the white king some breathing space later. Maybe you're going to clamp down, push your pawn further forward, gain some space. It's just mysterious.
Wow. Well, is it sensible when you look at the clock's time? Ding had been playing really fast, and then he was about to tick down to Pragnananda's clock as well to just keep his time advantage and think on Pragg's time now?
Yeah, I think it's good that he made a decision. I'm not sure it's the best decision. I think maybe he had to be a bit more direct and improve the white pieces. But yeah, I mean, in rapid chess, I think this is a decent move, a decent choice. And also, it's going to confuse Pragg. You can see on Pragg's face a minute ago. He was, what's the idea behind that one?
I'm baffled as well. I don't get it.
But the evaluation is 1 pawn up to Pragg.
Yeah, It's surprising it's that far. I guess maybe it's because white's pawn that Jovanka highlighted is so weak that eventually it might drop off the board. Also, black's pieces, they do look much more active than white's pieces. Again, I don't think there's anything direct or winning here for black, but +1 for black, +1 for Pragnananda, that's a positive sign. This is the type of advantage, though, that could disappear in the space of one move. It's not kind of an eternal +1 for black. It's not a long-term +1. It's kind of for the next few moves, maybe. Black is on top.
Well, he has to make a comeback, Pragg. He did lose the first game. 3 rapid games left in the match. This is one of them. He has to win either this one or one of the 2 final games to tie the match.
I don't think Pragg has ever been in a situation where he's had to make a comeback.
Maybe not.
I mean, I was thinking to the Oslo esports, he won everything in 3.
Yeah, that's true.
And he lost everything in 3.
Yeah.
It was a nice little pattern that he had going on there.
Yeah.
And yesterday, of course, he took the early lead against Anish Giri. So
I guess in the Oslo Esports Cup, when he lost those matches in 3, he was always down after 2 games, almost in a must-win situation. Not quite must-win, but yeah, I guess any situation, match situation, he's definitely going to have less experience than Ding here. He just has to compensate for that with energy and kind of the trickiness that he showed throughout the tour. And meanwhile, black has made one move. He's brought his rook back to its starting square, so decentralizing the black rook, but the whole idea is that that white pawn on the A3 square, the Lone Ranger, is a target. In a way, it makes sense.
Yeah, but I think what you're talking about, like the mental game here, when you're down, because he's so young, he hasn't played. Well, he's played loads of games, but he hasn't been in all these situations as much as the older players. And I think Magnus, for example, is really, really good at the mental game and sort of coming back after he's lost something. But Pragnananda, we also saw that last time in Oslo Esport Cup, that he maybe, because the pressure was so high when he was leading into the last day, that maybe he has to work more on his mental game to sort of come back.
That's true.
But one thing I did notice with Pragnananda when we had our chess talks was that he was pretty chill. You know, he told me that when he got his grandmaster title, he didn't celebrate that much. He just, smiled. When he beat his first, he just enjoyed. He just like, oh yeah, it was fun.
On to the next.
On to the next.
Yeah.
And I remember when he beat Magnus for the first time as well. He came on the show and he goes, yeah, but it wasn't my favourite game, Kyle. Yeah. I prefer my game against Lev Aronian. Check that out.
Yeah, when he beat me when he was 12, I remember him shaking his head. I was like, wait, you just beat me. Why are you shaking your head? But yeah, maybe it's just, he's always looking for the next challenge. He's not satisfied.
Sign of a champion, maybe.
True sign of a champion.
Yeah. I have to say, my experience with Pragg is only interviewing him, and it's just the biggest difference in those 3 months since he beat Magnus Carlsen in a game, and all the interviews we've done with him in tournaments leading up to this, he just seems 5 years older in the way he's answering. He's so much more comfortable, smile on his face, relaxing. Yeah. It's remarkable.
Yeah, well, he has had a lot of practice, because I do remember that he told me that when he defeated Magnus, the phone did not stop ringing for a week. And they had to come to some negotiation. They said, hey, we will answer your interviews, but you've got to stop doing this while I'm playing chess.
Yeah.
Have you ever had that, David?
Maybe not
with
to
all
that
your world
extent.
records.
With the
When I was young, there was a lot. When I beat a grandmaster when I was 8 years old, I know my parents, they said they had to kind of send people away. They had to, I mean, there were too many requests to go on shows and things, but I mean, I was oblivious. I was 8 years old. I was busy playing with my toys in the back garden or kicking a football around. I had no idea. But I think it was only later when I realised it must have been intense for my family and must have been intense.
Yeah.
I think I wouldn't have dealt with it that well in my teens. There was much less than Pragg, but there were a few moments when there was some interest, and I think I just wanted to hide away. I just wanted to focus on the chess, and I found it hard. But Pragg's taking it in his stride, and yeah, he doesn't seem flustered, distracted at all. I mean, look on the camera, he's just so focused on the board, eyes just darting around, calculating. It doesn't get to him.
Yeah. I know there is a story with Magnus as well, when he started becoming an international name. 60 Minutes called his dad and said, like, yeah, we decided we're going to do a story on Magnus Carlsen. And his dad was like, okay, we're having dinner. Might call you back later. Yeah. maybe we'll do 60 Minutes, maybe not. So Magnus never been too interested in the media stuff. But I guess, again, sign of a true champion, right? They just, it's all about the chess and the sport.
It must be harder now, though, for the younger players when there's so much social media. It's kind of harder to hide away. I don't know how old you are, but I'm guessing when you were 8, there wasn't that much, like...
Yeah, true.
It's easy to sort of protect the children.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's harder now to hide away from it all. And we know Pragg, he's on Twitter. You know, prime ministers tweeting about him, the biggest superstars in India tweeting about him. Obviously, they notice it.
Yeah. I mean, all you need to do is log onto a computer. Pragg probably gets his names popping up all over the place, and yeah, it's hard to ignore. It's hard to minimise that, kind of close the apps, focus on studying chess, studying openings. That's what he has to do.
Yeah, but I think when it comes to Pragg, he's surrounded by a team, you know, so he does have someone on the social media side. So to some extent, he is protected from that, but it still is pretty intense, especially these days, you know, because you make a wrong decision somewhere here, there, and everywhere, and suddenly, you know, everyone has an opinion, everyone wants to have their say. And yeah, I think that's quite tough. And as David says, especially if you're a teenager and all you want to do, and this is when I spoke to Pragg, all he wants to do is chess. Yeah. And I loved what he said to me about the exams. He goes, yeah, I just have to do some exams. Just get them over with. And I love the fact that, you know, he's playing great chess against Ding, and he's putting Ding under immense pressure in this particular position. And just think about it. He just did that exam in the morning.
It's incredible. And thinking for almost 3 minutes, he finally makes his move, David.
Yeah, I think it's a good move. That light squared bishop wasn't doing too much on its previous diagonal. It was just kind of staring down at some well-protected white pawns. So now this black bishop is pointing towards this queen side, towards the left flank, and it's controlling a lot of squares. My one concern is it did cost him a lot of time. He's under 4 minutes again. And as we saw in the last game, OK, Ding was great in the last game, but Pragg did slightly fall apart when he was low on the clock. And yeah, in previous events, up until the last couple of months, time trouble was by far his biggest weakness, Pragg. And he's handled it well this tournament so far, but this is the type of position with all the heavy pieces, all the minor pieces still on the board. Things could go wrong if you panic in time pressure. This is not the type of position either side can really control. Meanwhile, Ding is stuck on the first 3 ranks for White. White's just manoeuvring. The queen slides across 1 square. Again, very mysterious, not exactly clear where that queen is going. I think he just wants to keep her on a nice safe square. Maybe the white queen is tied down, actually defending that weak white pawn on the A line. And now Pragg re-centralizes, relocates his knight. This just looks beautiful for black, actually. Really nice harmony with the black pieces.
Yeah, I loved what he's doing. You know, he's saying, hey, the knight's not useful anymore on the edge. Knights on the rim are dim. And he's maybe going to really route it to the centre. And one of the ideas that David's highlighted. And just all the time posing questions to Ding. And I just, look at the piece. Ooh, look at this. Yeah. All the pieces are huddling together. I don't understand this move. Ooh.
I mean...
Is he trying to break out? I mean... Ooh. Don't get it.
I mean, they're nice and cozy, this little family just bunched up in a ball. It's as if they're, I mean, how many pieces? It's as if there's 6 people living in a 1-bedroom flat right now, these pieces. But Yeah, I mean, it's so easy for black to improve his pieces too. I mean, for example, the black rook can come up the board, I'm not sure exactly where, maybe this square, and then the other rook can slide across, just trying to target this weak pawn. That looks like one plan. For example, Jovanka also mentioned the black knight jumping in at some point. You can jump into the center, but you do have to work out whether white can grab this pawn. So maybe you could just defend this pawn first with a rook, for example, and then jump in with your knight at some point. It feels like black can improve. This knight can jump to the center, this knight can jump to the center, and yeah, I'm somehow just attracted to going after white's biggest weakness, this pawn, and that means maybe just doubling up the rooks on the A file. So this just a very simple idea that I'm trying to get inside Pragg's head as well, and he just loves these kind of moves where he improves the kind of dynamism, the potential of his pieces. If you think about it, black's pieces, they're all kind of doing something. They're all actually on great squares, maybe apart from this rook, which is centralized, but staring at its own pieces. So improving that might be the first step. Yeah, white's pieces, though, they don't make a great impression, especially this rook. What's it doing there?
Yeah, I must admit, I didn't anticipate when we kind of looked at the opening that this would be the result. To me, a little bit of an opening nightmare. Yeah. Didn't quite work well. And, well, Pragg going for your plan there, just choosing a different row for the rooks to line up on.
Yeah, actually, I like this one more. The black rook does have potential. It covers the whole 5th rank. It can't be attacked right now, that black rook, in a good way. The white pieces can't go over and kind of kick it. And, yeah, again, it's just every move is costing Pragg 1 to 2 minutes. Oh, I said that rook can't be kicked away, but we did see white's knight jump forward and a trade, and suddenly, okay, Ding gets up.
I was like, did he just resign? No, never see them leave the board.
But he's really happy, I think, with the change in pace, the change in developments in this game, and maybe we can just quickly show what happened there, because it was a quick flurry of moves, and meanwhile the moves keep coming thick and fast. If we rewind, the white knight jumped forward, attacking this black rook on the edge of the board, and okay, black decided, let's get rid of this knight, it's too strong. A trade of knights. Now we finally discover why those kind of family of pieces were huddling up. This rook suddenly opens up and attacks the black queen. So Pragg maybe missing that he had to kind of take a time out, step his queen away, and the white knight now looking fantastic in the center of the board. White's pawns are still ugly, both of them isolated and targets long term, but temporarily, even after Pragg's move, lining up his rook against this pawn, white has one good piece, and that's a good start for Ding. But he's away from the board. Yeah. Pragg, I don't know if he's got the camera up. Maybe he saw Ding leave the board, and now Ding's lost nearly a minute on the clock. That could be really valuable, especially as we're about to enter a time scramble.
Mm-hmm. Wow, okay, he's back.
Yeah, and he would have had the arbiter's permission to leave. Yeah, for sure. You can't just dash off somewhere and then come back. And
yeah, definitely nothing suspicious going on there. Just
no, definitely
bathroom visit, maybe.
Yeah.
They are allowed to do that, but that did cost him a minute.
I mean, a minute, that's a quarter of his time pretty much before this move, and that's going to be really valuable. It's still full of life, this position.
Yeah, I was going to say things are just heating up, you know, because we have a big battle going on because white's pieces are very active suddenly. Meanwhile, black will be having all the long-term play, and he'll be targeting those 2 weak pawns on the left.
Wow. Yeah. He looks very calm. The bar is roughly to the middle. Do you think, Heidi, that Ding is feeling that he is in trouble looking at this?
I'm not sure. I'm just well, I'm just surprised that he keeps on thinking even longer now that he's lost so much time just leaving the board. And I mean, there's not that much time left of the game, so I really do not understand why he got up and left.
Yeah, do you read your opponent's body language, Heidi, normally when you play against them? And if so, I mean, what would you say about the players here?
I think Pragg looks like he's fierce. It's like he's looking for something. Yeah. And Ding looks maybe a little bit more worried, but I'm not sure because I thought he looked a bit more worried in the first game as well, but then he won. So because I actually play poker as well, and one of the things that I love about poker is trying to read body languages. But I must admit that Ding is a bit difficult for me to read.
Yeah, Ding always does look worried from my experience of playing him. And then he'll unleash a winning move.
Yeah.
So, OK, meanwhile, the black knight has gone to the edge of the board. If you look at the black knight on the edge and the black rook, I think they're just ganging up on a pawn, and Pragg does go 1 pawn up. That black rook now defended by its knight. White's queen under fire as well. Ding has to move his queen. Where does he move it to? White's compensation for the pawn he's just lost lies in the fact his pieces are so active suddenly. If you look at the white rooks, they were terrible just 4 or 5 moves ago. The white rooks have opened up, the white knight in the middle of the board, also the white bishops on decent diagonals. So one pawn down, but not the end of the world here for Ding. I think he's chosen a good kind of way to dynamically sacrifice a pawn. Sometimes you've got to do that. If you have weaknesses, let them go. Don't go passive defending them. Let those pawns drop, but get active pieces in return.
Oof, yeah, look at Ding. He is ticking down on the clock, moving his queen.
Yeah, centralizes his queen. Great square. Jovanka calls this the Goldilocks square.
Yeah, it's the third row. It means the queen can just go to the right, go to the left. She has the ability to travel across the board. And things are going wild. And so this is the perfect final to watch. And I just wanted to say a big shout out to Battersea Chess Club, who have entered our selfie competition, to say, look what we're watching. And get this, Battersea Chess Club is holding the world's first virtual chess club meeting, a watch party for the Chessable Masters final. And so Simon, you might recognise someone in our space. Grab a beer and let's settle down to watch. And these two, Pragg and Ding, are providing the fireworks.
Yeah. And well, that's actually very interesting. First virtual chess club meeting, and I hear rumours you're known to this Battersea Chess Club, David.
I am. I've been there a few times. I've played some games there, played a simul, played a tournament. Yeah. Shout out to Aldo, Leon, everyone there.
Yeah.
Battersea Chess Club.
But now they made a virtual chess club. How cool!
Yeah, I mean, they do some great work. They're really innovative with their events, supporting women's chess, supporting all sorts of chess in the community. So,
yeah,
great work.
Definitely.
We need more chess clubs just like them.
And we need more virtual meetups, right?
Definitely.
I mean, that's been an idea that I've had for a long time. You know, like a match like this, just have everyone kind of getting together, talking, sharing their thoughts.
Yeah.
And, meanwhile, we've seen the dark square bishops leave the board, and a big threat in the air for Pragg to deal with.
Or maybe we can
25 seconds.
keep an eye on the players, but a huge threat. Pragg has to deal with this check. This check, if he'd been careless here, would have allowed a nasty fork on the queen, but also the king, the knight protected by her queen. So this would have been winning for Ding Liren. Pragg defended it by bringing his knight back in this position. The black knight now covering this key square, but suddenly it feels like everything's a bit loose for black. This black queen is placed on a bad square. This black rook suddenly is loose, doesn't have any protectors. It's not quite trapped at first. I thought, oh, maybe you could step back with the knight and trap this rook, but there's only one safe square. It is enough, however, the rook can centralize itself. It's just very tense. White is a pawn down, as we mentioned, but look at every white piece. This white queen better than the black queen. It's got great vision down this diagonal. The two white rooks probably better than the black rooks right now. And okay, this rook is almost trapped. Pragg has to be really careful now. The bishop might come back and try to trap it. Pragg, though, reacts by pushing his central pawn, firstly blocking this bishop, but also creating a square for the black knight. I like this last move by Pragg, I must say. Multi-purpose move. This knight, the black knight, if it gets there later, it will be on a dream square.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is a dream square. But yeah, the heat is on, isn't it?
What do you think? What will be the result in this game?
It's wild, Kaya. This is so crazy because, you know, David's pointed out some amazing plans for Pragg. But yeah, Ding is potentially going to be attacking the white rook. Will it escape? It's only got one hidey hole.
There we go, the black rook under fire now from that bishop. As Jovanka mentions, it doesn't have too many safe squares. Actually, I'm trying to find a way to trap it now. The black rook, the only safe square I can see is it for it to come down 2 squares. There we go, to the second rank. If the white queen attacks it, then maybe it can go back up the board. That black rook is playing with fire. It's living a charmed life right now. It's all a bit loose, though, for both sides. That white knight in the centre of the board suddenly not as safe as it previously was. This is a 3-result game. Anything's definitely possible, and it's going to be about, I mean, it feels like a blunder's incoming from one side. It's just going to be about who can hold their nerves. Now they're both around the 1-minute mark. Pragg, you know, he's got that energy going, the youthful energy that we see, just getting the adrenaline pumping.
I'm getting nervous, David. I don't know about you, because it's such a crazily complicated position.
And it's going to be so dramatic for Pragg if he blunders in this position, and if he loses, then he's going to be in must-win situation in both of the 2 final games. How does he usually do, David? And what has it been like in this tournament when he is so low on the clock?
Pragg has been great, actually, when he's been low on the clock in this tournament. We've seen several occasions where he's actually losing or a big disadvantage, and he's been saving the games despite having 30 seconds on the clock. So I think that was his weakness last year when he played Pragg, but that's where he's improved a lot. Much quicker now, much more tenacious despite the clock times. And to be honest, I would rather be in a situation like this, both players low on the clock, with one extra pawn. And Pragg does have that one extra pawn. So even if things go wrong for him, the margin for error for Pragg is slightly higher. If Ding makes a mistake, however, he'll be a pawn down and no compensation. If Pragg makes a mistake, maybe he'll just lose the pawn back and it will be a drawish position. Meanwhile, a trade of rooks has just happened. So Black survived. His rook did not get trapped. And still one pawn down for Ding, but he's pushing and Alice the A-pawn up the board. I'm slightly concerned about the white king, but at the moment the white king is defended very well by its bishop.
Yeah, I also had a little bit of a panic when I saw the white king all by itself, but it's all good. But definitely some pressing issues for the youngster to solve, and he's just got 20 seconds on the clock. And Ding is going to be targeting those pawns on the left.
Yeah, just like the last game, it's 2 against 1 in terms of pawns. Those 2 black pawns against the 1 white pawn on the corner, but you can't really push the black pawn safely yet. OK, very logical move. The evaluation bar doesn't like it, but Black's rook entering an open file. Can't find any fault with that. And now, OK, offer of a bishop trade. That black bishop was actually creating some checkmating nets around the white king. The white king had no breathing space while that black bishop sits on the board. So trading it off looks decent, but now I just have a feeling it's going to be hard for Ding to win this game. Feels like Pragg is the only one who can win, and he does indeed push one of his pawns. One thing that you've got to be really careful of doing in the current position, Ding with 1 minute now, just to show this, because it's one of the most common checkmating patterns out there in chess. After a trade of bishops now, this pawn creates another mating net, and the black queen is actually ready to pounce in and to this g2 square to checkmate the white king. So you've got to be really careful. I don't think Ding is going to rush with this exchange. If you capture, this bishop, if you take it off the board, you have to stop the queen coming in, for example, with your king on the side of the board. But yeah, you definitely don't want to allow this pawn to sit on this square. So, OK, instead of trading bishops, he just shuffles his rook across. These are the targets. Maybe Pragg has to go defensive for one move. No, he doesn't go defensive. He brings his rook up the board. And I guess his idea is that if the white queen takes this pawn, then after a trade, we would just see Black stay a pawn up in the endgame. It's not clear whether Black's extra pawn is going to decide this one for a win, but he's going to try. Risk-free position, and we've gone for this exact line. So Black has 1 extra pawn. It's just about whether he can push this for victory. It feels very close, between a win and a draw somewhere now for Pragg. No more risk for the Indian.
And Ding doing great things there, putting his rook behind the passed pawns. Rooks always belong behind passed pawns.
Yeah. So logical play from both sides. I like the fact Pragg has taken all the risk out of the position, but maybe fewer winning chances here than there were when queens were still on the board. Less risk, but also less reward, potentially. OK, he has to put his own rook on a passive square now, protecting his own pawn. It's just this tension between the bishops. Do you trade or do you not? And if you do, when? Because the white king is kind of caught in a box in the corner. Even if you trade bishops off, how is that white king ever going to get active? You can imagine the black king coming towards the centre. And, whoa, Ding pushes a pawn. He's trying to trick the black bishop. If the black bishop moves back and captures this pawn that's just moved, white's bishop can actually grab black's pawn in the centre. So it does feel a bit loose there.
Surprising. Wasn't the move I expected, was it?
I did not see that one, I must admit. And now, OK, clever from Pragg. The black rook now is defending the black pawn in the centre of the board. So now there is a threat of black's bishop stepping back and taking the white pawn on the g4 square. Ding, OK, he suddenly put his head in his hands again. His normal situation, but he looks very, very nervous.
Yeah. Heidi, being a poker player, an expert in reading body languages, what do you read from these two players now?
I find it really difficult to read Ding, but actually I think he seems a bit more confident now than what he did. But then he put his hand up, and that would make me think, like, maybe not you.
Oh, is that a sign with the hand?
I think so, a little bit.
Players always have their tells, right? Their ticks, their mannerisms. OK, this white pawn, the white g-pawn, is it going to survive, though? If Pragnananda can win this white pawn on the g5 square and go 2 pawns up, he's going to win this game. It's just about whether that is sufficient. Oh, OK, now the black rook can go and grab this pawn. Yes, one of the black pawns is going to fall, but black's rook can now enter, give a check to the white king, come down the board, and win a second pawn. It's 3 versus 2 now in terms of pawns, but can Pragg not just get greedy here?
I absolutely agree. Give a check to the king. Give it to it horizontally. Okay, king steps up.
Now,
take the pawn.
Big question, do you take the pawn or do you keep the white king kind of caught in a box? Do you push maybe black's g-pawn further forward? Oh, I mean, the white king, yes, you can take this pawn now. Okay, the computer here, Stockfish, does suggest 3 moves, and the top 2 moves are not actually being greedy now and taking this white pawn next to the black rook.
Ah.
Okay, Praggnanandhaa doesn't go for one of the top 3 moves, but he doesn't take the pawn, so he's not being greedy, he's keeping the white king sidelined, though. The white king is cut off from the action. This one is so hard to call. Again, I don't know whether objectively it's winning or not, or whether it might be a draw. White's rook now is coming. It wants to go behind the black f-pawn, and okay, temporarily at least, Pragg is 2 pawns up.
Ding has been able to build up his clock, but for Pragg it's still very dramatic on the clocks. But the bar keeps liking it for Pragg.
Yeah.
There must be something here.
It must be winning, surely. 2 pawns up in a rook endgame.
But
The
the
question is, what next?
The black rook is really passive now, and it's tied eternally to the defense of the f3 pawn. And is this going to be a real hindrance to black? And I think it is, actually, because white's rook, very active, and it gives a check.
Yeah, so in a way, white is just going to check, just annoy the black king. In a way, white is just going to wait with the white rook somewhere. But the black rook, how can it ever move without giving up the pawn next to the white king? Yeah, the black rook, you're right, Jovanka, it is a bit stuck.
I mean,
and if that black pawn does disappear, if it's 2 versus 1, it should still be a draw, some winning chances. But objectively, with correct play, it should be a draw. So it's just about whether black can activate his rook and keep his 3rd pawn.
The other option that I see for black is actually to try to advance his own pawns and try to make sure that the lone ranger there on f3 gets some company.
Yeah, and you can do that with baby steps. Here, black's just going to push one of his pawns, I feel, and one of the 2 pawns that hasn't moved yet. Push it 1 square, 2 squares, 1 square. Keep those pawns nice and safe, then you bring the king down, then you push the other pawn, then you push kind of step by step.
Caterpillar is what I call it.
Caterpillar.
Yeah.
Because the king is so important in the end game. People say it's worth 3 or 4 points. Even, so yeah, it's important to get it into the middle.
Yeah, especially, I mean, the more pieces that disappear, the more kings kind of can play their role.
It seems so scary, though. I always think it seems so scary.
Yeah, it does, but here comes the king. The good thing is white will never checkmate the black king because white only has a rook. You need at least 2 or 3 pieces to checkmate. So the black king can happily wander into the center of the board.
So Ding is happy with the draw now.
Ding would. I mean, he's on his knees begging for the draw at the moment. But Praggnanandhaa won't give it to him easily. It's just about whether the black king or the black pawns can advance. The black rook at the bottom of the board and the pawn near it, they are stuck for now.
Do you think another baby step will happen?
Possibly. If the white rook is going to give some annoying checks to the black king. That's the problem right now. How is Pragg going to win this one? If Pragg tries to sprint forward and try to go for a queen, if the black f-pawn pushes down 1 square away from promotion, the white king is going to come back and kind of track it. So the black king running back to safety. Kaya, you're right. The black king was just a bit too scared of the open there.
Yeah. Is this a game where we have to keep track of last pawn to move, last piece to be captured, or is that not an issue yet?
Not yet. So the last pawn move was on, let me check, move 50. So we've made 6 moves only without a pawn move or without a capture. There is a 50 move rule, but long way yet. It does feel like Praggnanandhaa at some point, maybe now, can start pushing his other 2 pawns. Black has 2 pawns in reserve.
And look at the bar after Ding moves his king.
Yeah, I think the white king was quite good there because it was kind of blocking the black king from ever coming forward, stopping the black pawns from moving.
Okay.
Here they come.
Here it comes, and I agree with you there, David, that white king should not have moved. It should have been the white rook that was doing the heavy lifting. And, okay, I mean, is there a... The white king now has to step forward, right?
Possibly. Black's king actually can kind of use its own pawns as shelter. The black king might come round the H file, it might come round the other way, while the white rook, okay, here it goes first, but it's going to hide behind its own pawns. And here we go, Pragg is going to hide his king. Surely on the g5 square,
Yes.
opposite the white king. Oh no, it comes to the center. Oh, that's so clever, because now we have to show this trick. I thought this route, look at Ding shaking his head. I thought this route was just blocked off, the black king coming in now to win this white pawn. I thought it was impossible because white's rook can go and win the black pawn, but Pragg had spotted that he can skewer now the king to the white rook, and he wins the white rook, and Pragg is going to take this game. If white's rook cannot go and grab this pawn, there's nothing you can do. The black king's just coming in. Even if you cut it off, even if you cut off the king's advance, then now the black pawn is just going to step forward and protect its buddy here. And once this pawn is protected, the black rook is free. Pragg, perfect technique. He's going to win now.
Wow, making a comeback in the match after losing the first game. How impressive by the 16-year-old. The bar now saying 7 advantage.
And it looks like Ding has resigned.
It's over. And now, Heidi, maybe it's possible to read Ding's body language.
Yeah, but yeah, he does not seem too happy right now. And Pragg, you could see he had like this sigh.
Yeah.
It looked like he was very happy about this.
Yeah, he has made a comeback, the 16-year-old. They are now tied after 2 games. Ding Liren and Praggnanandhaa, both of them winning with the black pieces. And what a performance by Pragg in this game. Both of the players still sitting by the computers, looking over this. And the question is, where is that big moment when Pragg did get the win?